the aircraft at that point, decided to spiral the aircraft down through the clouds in instrument met conditions and back to under the cloud cover. So I think mine as well as the entire crew's hearts were in their mouths, because until we got out of that cloud cover and back to safety was kind of a long, although it was probably just 30 seconds or 45 seconds, it felt like it was 10 minutes.
Welcome listeners to another exciting episode of Be All You Can. I'm Deepa Parab, your host today, and I'm extremely excited and proud to introduce our speaker for today. Our guest is someone very special, someone who has been on the literal highway to the danger zone, an unassuming test pilot in disguise. You may find him steering meetings for the aerospace marketing team today, but he started his career as a helicopter pilot for the Indian Navy. Please welcome Zariab Ranji.
Thank you, ma'am, for having me.
Let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and what first drew you to the skies?
Right, so I grew up as a Bombay boy, born and brought up here. And what drew me to the skies, I think I have a very simple answer for that. I just was a kid who never grew up. I think all kids at some point in their lives look at the skies and dream about being there. And then finally life catches up and their priorities change and they start having other goals. I probably was a kid who just never grew up and continued dreaming about being the skies. So I think that's what drew me there, like most other kids.
Amazing. So the child in us should be kept alive. That's what we always say. Was there a particular moment or person that sparked your dream to become a pilot?
Particular moment, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint, but I would say that largely because of the kind of content that was available as a kid, whether it was movies or whether it was some books that I would have read as a kid, or just a kid being a kid. And as I passed through my schooling and my college and that after my engineering, that part of me never died down. And then when I had the opportunity to apply for an interview, it's called an SSB interview, a Service Selection Board interview, I applied for it and cleared it. So I think that was the journey to getting there. And then once I cleared the interview, there was no looking back.
Very well. What was a typical day for you as an armed force pilot? Tell us about the remarkable aircrafts you have piloted and maybe which one stole your heart.
So I started my career in 2009 with training for 1.5 years. 6 months of military training followed by 1 year of flying training, out of which 6 months was with the Air Force and 6 months with the Navy. Post 1.5 years of complete training is when I became an officer of the rank of sub-lieutenant, and I also was a qualified pilot at the same time. So I started with helicopters in my first posting luckily was Bombay itself. So I was stationed here in Bombay for 2 years. And I also did an interesting tenure of about 3 months doing anti-piracy operations off the coast of Somalia while I was in this tenure. So that was my initial stint as I entered as a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And after my stint of 2 years in Bombay, I moved on to Kashmir. I was posted to the army on deputation. So I would say the number of stories that I have from there would probably be too much to, complete over the time that we have. But there were definitely instances where I would just, even now, I sometimes dream of going back there because of the kind of work that it entails. The job satisfaction out of it is something you can't measure, because your fellow soldiers, your fellow brothers who are deployed on the line of control, sometimes not only on the line of control, even in the interiors of those areas where operations happen regularly with militants, and you need to rescue some of them because they've got gunshot injuries, mine blasts. So just being there as a lifeline and getting those guys out of these kind of sticky situations was a very job satisfying tenure for me.
When we talk about Kashmir, I think, can you walk us through the mindset you need before stepping into the cockpit, especially for the high risk mission?
Right. So I was flying cheetahs over there for the army, and sometimes you need to fly these aircraft in in places where there are no designated landing areas, because when you have troops deployed right on the line of control and they need to be evacuated, it's not always possible to get them to a designated landing area for the aircraft. So the Cheetah, being a very nimble helicopter, you could land it in places, in places and spots which were otherwise inaccessible to other larger aircraft. And yes, sometimes I've had the misfortune of even carrying some of our troops who had unfortunately passed away because we couldn't reach them on time, or the injury was such that there was no way to get there to evacuate them. So the mindset, yes, has to be a little, it toughens you up as you go through it. But
what's been your most challenging mission or the most memorable experience in the air?
there have been quite a few. From my Kashmir tenure again, an unassuming morning, I think it was over a weekend, maybe a Saturday or Sunday, because I do distinctly remember we weren't going to a regular workplace, but I was on duty because we used to have designated CASEVAC pilots, and I was a CASEVAC pilot for that day. And I suddenly get a call at, I think, about 9 in the morning saying that there's a casualty in a place called Inshan. And so the weather was marginal. Well, not really marginal when we took off. So, but the thing with Kashmir is that the weather can pack up really quick, especially in certain months. And so we took off. We were a 2-aircraft formation. We went into Inshan. Everything was fine. We picked up the casualty. And as we come back into the valley area, which is surrounded by hills, the entire valley is packed with clouds. So imagine you are flying over the peak of those hills, and suddenly below you, what we call as undercast. The entire valley is undercast with clouds. And being in a VFR, or a visual flight rule aircraft, the Cheetah, you don't have really that many instruments to guide you down in instrument met conditions. They call IMC. So now suddenly being enveloped in IMC, and we had the casualty with us. We had to get him back safely, and all of us back safely as well. So the cloud cover being undercast, and there being no breaks in the clouds for us to be able to penetrate and get back down to safe land, we decided to go over a central point in the valley, which we knew would be clear of any obstructions, using our GPS and the instruments on board. And as we reached that central point, me being the captain of the aircraft at that point, decided to spiral the aircraft down through the clouds in instrument met conditions and back to under the cloud cover. So I think mine, as well as the entire crew's, hearts were in their mouths, because until we got out of that cloud cover and back to safety was kind of a long, although it was probably just 30 seconds or 45 seconds, it felt like it was 10 minutes. And then once we got down under the cloud cover and we could reach the casualty back to safety at what we call the BB Cant hospital, we dropped him off and we headed back. And as we landed back, we all just heaved a big sigh of relief that we were lucky to see another day.
Very well.
One of my most memorable experiences as a test pilot would be the first firing of our indigenous anti-ship missile. So there was an anti-ship missile that a DRDO lab called RCI, Research Center Imarat, designed and developed. And it was the first time an Indian organization was designing an anti-ship missile. And I had the fortune of being the team lead on that first firing, and we could successfully fire that missile in the first go. So
such a proud moment as well.
Absolutely.
What's been one of the challenging times during that, as a leader, maybe when you lead a group? So can you just talk about that?
So what was interesting about this mission especially was the fact that I was not only kind of overseeing aspects on the Navy side of things, but I was also overseeing the functionality and the operations done by the DRDO, the RCI side of things. So it was a cross-functional team. So I think that was the most challenging bit, because you are used to how the Navy works and you know who to reach out to get a certain task done. But when you are with a sister organization who has its own nuances of functioning, both teams functioning together was of optimal importance for this mission to be successful. I think that's what I kind of feel proud of about, that I could bring both teams together and get them working on a manner, explain to them that we're working for the same goal, and finally achieving for the team achieving a successful test firing of in the first go. So call kudos to the team that could make it happen.
Fascinating though. For the young listeners dreaming of a career like yours, what's your best piece of advice?
Right. So I have, especially now with Ops Sindoor happening, I have a lot of people telling me that, oh, we feel so inconsequential, and we feel that, oh, the armed forces is something that they feel inconsequential when they compare themselves to the armed forces. But I would say that we all have a part to play, and we all have a role to play for the country and for the world at large. So irrespective of what you are pursuing, I think as long as you can proudly say that you've given it your best shot, and you've done it with the idea of progressing humanity at large in the direction that you would see it progress in, you've achieved your goal.
Absolutely. Now, to most people, the sky is the limit. To those who love aviation, the sky is home. You once called sky your home. How did you find your path back to Earth? And what inspired your career transition?
Right. So, spending so much time in flying, you sometimes miss being on ground as well. So, getting back on ground is not such a bad thing. And especially after doing test flying with the Navy and the Air Force for about 5 years after passing out as a test pilot, getting back to commercial flying or civil flying was not something I was interested in, probably because it would have not given me something new to learn as compared to what I'd already done. So I was looking to expand my existing technical expertise in the systems I've dealt with in a different manner. And so when I learned that Godrej Aerospace was looking at getting into design projects now and holding intellectual property for projects that we would be designing and manufacturing for our customers, that kind of really caught my attention. Because from traditionally being a manufacturing company and now shifting the gaze to include design as part of the portfolio was something that has always been fascinating for me. We in fact have started although small, but a very capable design team in Godrej Aerospace, which is headed by a design head who's got about 20 years of experience working in other firms in industry. So we are looking at entering the design space and adding a lot of value to the Indian aerospace segment by not only manufacturing, but also designing critical systems and subsystems for the aerospace segment in India.
Very true. Looking back, what would you tell your younger self on the day you first put on that uniform?
My younger self on the day I first put on the uniform? Well, there were a lot of questions, a lot of doubts in my head when I first donned the uniform, and maybe I was not sure as to in which direction my career was going to go. Because honestly, I was a short service officer, which means that I had 10 years to serve and could be extended to 14. And till date, in fact, till the year I qualified the test pilot exams, no other short service officer had ever been even given the opportunity to appear for those exams. And being the first short service officer to appear and clear those exams and become a test pilot, now that I look back on it, I would have just told myself that, just continue doing what you're doing, and you will reap the benefits of it, and you would get what you want eventually. So I was always fascinated about being a test pilot, and it just came true.
Very true. And quite motivating, right? Can you tell our budding pilots about the selection process, the preparation, physically, mentally, emotionally, and the challenges of the training?
Wherein to be a military pilot, you have to clear firstly a service selection board interview, which is true for all other aspects of a military career. Whether you want to be a doctor in the military, or you want to be a navigator or an infantryman, you have to clear that interview. But after you clear that interview, if you are an Air Force pilot entry or a Navy pilot entry, you need to also clear something called as a PABT, a Pilot Aptitude Battery Test. A Pilot Aptitude Battery Test is, you can imagine it as a video game with a joystick. I'm talking about when I gave it about 16 years back. So I don't know if things have changed, but it's like a joystick with a control column and with some buttons, and you see a screen, and you have to try and keep certain dots within a certain area. So they're basically testing your psychomotor skills. While you're keeping those dots, they will have flashes of light coming out on the side, and depending on what color or what side the flash of light is, you need to press a certain button. They are trying to understand, while doing a primary task, what is your situational awareness to do a secondary task. So they're testing you for your psychomotor skills, because they don't have the luxury of extending your flying training and like you'd have in a civil environment, where you could just pay a little more and continue to get the experience of flying till you are confident of clearing the exams. Where here they have a very strict set syllabus, and you need to clear it within that. So they need to ensure that the people that they are taking on board have the required psychomotor skills for being a military pilot. So that's one thing you got to clear. And apart from that, there are medicals wherein they check you for your spinal alignment, your eyesight, 100 things. And I know so many friends who clear their PABT, and because of their medicals, some small little thing here or there. So you can't really predict these things actually. Once you clear the medicals, then you wait for the merit list to come out, and once your name figures in the merit list, you get into training. In my case, it was 6 months of military training, which was non-flying, followed by flying training. Post that, you are segregated into fighters, helicopters, or transport, depending on what you choose and what your merit is. And once you get into the stream of your choice, you start training particularly and vertically for that stream. As you start gaining experience in that stream, you could opt for other professional courses, like a flying instructor course or a test pilot course. These are the two main courses that people, go for. I think that sufficiently answers the training bit of it for anyone who's interested in joining military aviation.
Yes, of course, because I think very well explained each aspect of it. And what I take it from here as well is the agility of the person who's going to be in there. So agility could be again a skill that we'll be looking forward, along with your math, physics, and other subject, and being very mindful. Also being very flexible with your thoughts when needed. Right. So very well explained each aspect. Thank you for that. So Zariab, thank you for your time, your stories, and your service. But just a minute, Zariab, you're not yet flown out of our radar. We have some rapid fire questions for you. So let's begin. Your biggest inspiration?
Thinking about myself tomorrow.
What do you do in your free time?
I don't get too much free time nowadays, but the little that I get, I do try and get some physical activity in.
All right. Your favorite movie?
I'm sorry, but in the previous question, I can't exclude my daughter, because I do, in my free time, I always try and make some time for her. So yes, it's physical workout and daughter.
All right, we take that. Your favorite movie?
I think that would be Munich. Yeah.
If not a pilot, what would you be in an alternate universe?
If not a pilot, well, if not a test pilot, I would probably have. So there's one thing that I missed on doing, was becoming an astronaut. Oh. And fortunately, rather, it's test pilots who end up becoming astronauts. So all the 4 guys who are going up in space in the Gaganyaan mission are all test pilots. Maybe in another universe, I could be one of them.
Okay, great. And you're already associated with the aerospace now, so we see the chances being very brighter now. So, Zariab, thank you for sharing your unique life experience with us. Until next time, keep your eyes on the sky and your heart.
Thanks for listening to Be All You Can, a podcast by Godrej Enterprises Group, exploring the passion, purpose, and dreams of pioneers. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire action and impact.